Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dreams Unlimited Travel Podcast. My name is John Magi, and I'll be your host. And in this episode, we're going to answer some of your questions about the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. I'm joined at the table by our panel of experts, Client Services Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Kevin Kloos.
Hola.
Agent Consultant for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Tracy Heinrichs.
Bonjour.
Back in our production facility, we have our producer, Craig Williams.
Ahoy.
Oh, he spoke sailor.
I have spoke sailor every episode, thank
Yeah,
you.
but it was just because he did a
There was a theme.
There was a theme.
I always speak sailor. It's polite.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to answer some more of our listeners and viewers' questions about the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. Just to remind folks, these come from a variety of sources. Bless you.
Bless you.
If I do not read your question and we don't get to it, it's not because we didn't like it. It's just because we didn't have enough time, and we will try to get it on a different future show. All right. Getting into it. The first question. I am paranoid about getting sick and having issues while on vacation. My husband makes fun of me all the time for this. What happens if one of my kids gets sick at Disney and we don't have a car? Are there doctors that make house calls? Do I call 911? Help.
I happen to have some experience with this. Surprisingly enough, I was traveling once with Ben and my niece, and I got really sick, got a really bad throat infection and stuff. Called our out-of-country, I'm from Canada, so I have out-of-country medical insurance when I travel. Called my travel insurance company and explained the situation to them. They did have a doctor come to the room.
Oh.
So there was the option for a house call. They looked into it. I said, I can't get anywhere. I have these two little kids with me. And they had a doctor come to the room. He came, checked it out. He ordered labs, had somebody come to the room to take the labs, and wrote a prescription for me, and even they delivered the prescription.
Do you know where they called? Was it one of these Centricare?
I think it would have been something like that. Yeah.
And they're all around the
Yes.
Disney property,
Yeah.
walk-in medical
I mean, I've
clinics.
heard of the doctors coming to a room and doing house calls. I've never heard them do lab work in a room. That's unbelievable.
There was a traveling.
Because you have good Canadian insurance.
That's what it was. It was the Canadian
Don't get
out of
excited. It
country.
was the guy from the quick service restaurant.
Yeah, like,
Oh, that's why he had a straw.
and a hairnet.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is that there. What I do want to say, though, is you're in a major city when you're in
Yes.
Disney. You're not you're not
Camping.
right. There's, if it's an emergency, obviously call 911, call the front desk, if you're at your resort. During our wedding trip, in fact, my nephews both got very sick and first went to an urgent care. And one of my nephews spent a few days in Children's Hospital in Orlando. And again, Disney was very helpful, we let them know what was happening. They were helpful in helping us arrange, transportation and helping us get what we needed. So you'll be fine. Honestly, right. Of all the things to be paranoid and worried about, there'll be plenty of help for you. And if you don't know what to do, because in that moment sometimes you're upset. I was upset. I was panicked. I was alone with two kids. So when you have travel medical insurance, your first call has to be to your insurance company. And that person set me at ease. But if that didn't work, I would have called the front desk, and I know they would have helped me.
There's also, we even have pediatric emergency all over around Disney. And there are some that are open late
24 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the help is there. And if you're traveling with someone who can get you to an urgent care, that's probably going to be your fastest.
You can Uber there. You can,
Yeah,
do
but they do have the complimentary shuttle, too, that they'll take you to the urgent care. So but like you just said, you're going to get there a little bit faster if you
Grab an
use
Uber.
rideshare.
In the days of rideshare now, it would be so simple to do that. So don't let that worry you. There are plenty of options. And if it's one of those things where you kind of have that moment of panic, oh my God, we're not at home, what do I do? Call the front desk. They'll help you.
And if you're in the park, every park has a, what's the word?
Like a first aid.
A first aid station.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's it.
Yep. So you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Load up on cough syrup.
Here's the other thing I would
And that-
suggest.
yeah.
If you have a family doctor, John and I have a good relationship with our family doctor. So I always travel with a broad spectrum antibiotic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are one of those people who, your doctor realizes that you're not just taking antibiotics, you could probably travel
Yep.
with, if you ask.
And if you have over-the-counter stuff that you use for your kids when they're at home and they get sick, bring it with you, because it's not going to be easy. There are things here at Disney that you could get, but it may not be what you're used to
Right.
or what your kids are used to. I know for us in Canada, we have maybe some different products that aren't available here. So I travel almost with my own medicine cabinet just in case.
We do too.
Yeah. So you've got it. And
Disney resorts are stocked with a certain amount of over-the-counter medicines, which are just fine for a general cold or a sore throat or something like that.
It's safer if you have your own though, because like Disney loves just putting out like a bottle of Delsum, and that's what they consider good for everything. So like the last time I was in California and I had the flu, and I'm just taking Delsum because I'm too lazy to take an Uber to the Walgreens or CVS and get actual medicine, and I don't think it did anything for me, but it was the best $18 bottle of Delsum that I've ever
I was going to say, not only that, it's like 18% alcohol. So I was like, ooh, this is great.
yeah, so just kind of bring, it's easy to bring that stuff with you. Just over the
Again, I
counter.
think you touched on something very briefly. Is please do not worry about this. Please do not let this not allow you to travel because you're worried about getting sick. I mean, this is
There is a Centricare literally at the end of Hotel Plaza Boulevard.
exactly.
Yeah, there's plenty of options for you. And like I said, I've been through it a couple times and never felt, concern or stress because there was always somebody that was willing to help.
Yep. Taking this over to cruising, Disney Cruise Line, there's a doctor on board, there's a nurse on board. There might be other circumstances where other things might happen, but you can get the care you need.
You should have travel insurance.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Travel
Tracy,
insurance.
explain it.
All right, our next question. What do you know about the new policy of Disney cracking down on the dining plan? I'm reading that children's credits have to be used on children's meals now. Let me do a little bit of background and then we'll answer the question. So what's popped up actually on January 1st is on people's My Disney Experience. Their dining credits are being broken out into children and adult credits. So they're actually seeing they have X number of adult credits, X number of children's credits. And it sort of sparked this whole conversation because in the past, you could get an adult meal using the children's credits.
That was true only for quick service. And it was true when you were on the deluxe plan because it didn't differentiate.
Right.
So table service credits on the regular plan were always this way.
But it was because they were in those two plans, they were just sort of a lump number of credits. And now people are seeing them being broken out and there's concern over it. I guess the only way I can answer it is this is the way it's always supposed to have been.
Yeah, this is the rule. I mean,
Right.
They wouldn't differentiate between adults and children's, and they wouldn't charge you a different price for the child if they didn't assume it was being used by a child. So this is one of those loopholes that's just been around for a while that people kind of got used to. I saw people call, policy change, game changer.
Right.
No change, no game changing. They really just found a way to enforce something that they couldn't enforce before.
What's happened is, there are people who figure out every little loophole and every little thing to get a little bit out of the system, and now they can't use that.
Yep.
So
while it was a nice perk while it lasted, for those, it was a nice benefit, I'm sure. And sometimes it's legit. Like you've got a 9-year-old who would prefer an adult meal.
Yeah.
So we're not talking that it's always, people trying to get away with something. But this was the way it was intended. Obviously, that's why they chose, they charge you a lower price. They're just enforcing a rule now.
Right.
Not really a change.
There's another part of this too that's come up in that people want to know, can people not on your dining plan staying in your room use your credits? And the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
Because let's say, for example, we were traveling as a party of 4 and one of our party couldn't make it, we could bring someone else to dinner with us and use that credit. And basically the answer to that is technically no. But in the grand scheme of things, the waiter isn't going to say, you don't look like Kevin, you look like John, let me see some ID.
Right.
So you can still do that. You can still bring someone else.
And I
use
can't
your
imagine
credits.
them ever making the effort to break it down that far because it's still an adult meal or a child. Really, if I've paid for this number of adult credits, it shouldn't matter who's eating the adult
right,
credit.
Exactly.
Right. But
So that was part of the question too, was are they going to start cracking down on
Adult credits. No, I'm hungry.
yummy adult credits? Boy, there's something else I wanted. Oh, and someone had asked, what happens if there's no kids menu? What happens if it's all the same thing?
does that happen anywhere?
Someone pointed out to me, and I forget where it was.
I think
Disney
then it would
property,
just be fine.
that
You
it's
would
just a credit.
if that's what's available at that restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't panic over this. Don't freak out over it. It's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, it's just a little stitch on a loophole.
Yep. All right.
It was profound, wasn't it?
It really was.
It just came to me.
Excellent.
She's making stuff up.
It's making herself laugh. So, it's good. All right. Our next question. I'm planning a trip specifically to get into Galaxy's Edge and do Rise of the Resistance. Boy, everybody wants to do Rise of the Resistance. We won't have a car, and we want to make sure we get to Hollywood Studios early enough to get a boarding pass. What Disney resort would you suggest? I was thinking Boardwalk is the closest, but it's too expensive for us.
Well, you've got the resorts on the Skyliner, but the Skyliner isn't necessarily opening early enough to get you there. Buses tend to be running a little bit earlier. I would look at that area. So if Boardwalk's out price-wise, then we're looking at moderates and deluxes. So Caribbean Beach is in a decent location. Pop Century, Art of Animation are both in great
I
locations.
was just going to say, with the
proximity.
new entrance to Hollywood Studios, those are the closest,
They
in
are.
my opinion.
And even if if the bus doesn't work out and you're going to grab rideshare, it's peanuts
Yeah.
to get there, and they'll drop you off right at the gate. So
That's a really good point. I think that a lot of people don't know or overlook is the fact that if you take the bus, you're still going to be dropped off at the bus location.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take rideshare or a car or something like that, you can go right up to the turnstiles
Yeah.
and be dropped off right there. And Hollywood Studios has done a really good job of reimagining
Yes.
their whole turnstile area.
Yeah.
So it's super easy to get into.
yeah, so I would look if you want to be there that early. I mean, but I think if your goal is 30 minutes before park opening, the park bus is going to get you there. And if you're looking for a resort location, I think central in that area is a good
Swan
location.
Dolphin.
Yeah.
You can do Swan Dolphin.
do Swan and Dolphin.
I'm going to be honest with you, does it really matter? Because, I mean, the buses are always going to be running at that
It
time.
only matters for a boarding group. So if the bus didn't run early enough, like you want to be there 30 minutes ahead. So if the bus wasn't running early enough, I guess it could be an issue. But the park bus is going to start operating typically an hour before
Yeah,
park
before,
opening.
right.
They're
So-
all running early
Yeah.
enough, but if you do need to ease your mind, don't. If you can't afford Boardwalk, then you can't afford the monorail
Beach
loop
or-
anyways.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not a big deal.
Yep.
But so maybe don't put yourself all the way out at like Riverside and then feel like you're traveling
Or
super
Animal
far.
Kingdom Lodge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just if you need the value, stay at Pop Century, Art of Animation, All Stars even, and then just be at
All
the bus
Stars
stop
will put you a little
early,
far
yeah.
out too.
Yeah, a little bit,
Little
but
bit.
it's if you're working on a budget.
Yeah.
You have
The
to-
only plus I see to anything of proximity is if you decided to walk there.
Yeah,
Boardwalk,
and that's your
Yacht
Boardwalk
Beach,
resorts.
Swan
Yeah.
Dolphin. I mean, that's if you
Yeah.
decide that, but I don't see any.
That's silly.
Yeah, really, exactly. Well, then you got to walk to the back of the park.
But don't be afraid of rideshare because it is fantastic on property. Very inexpensive to get around. We've had only good luck. Yes, there are minivans as well, but their prices have just gotten insane.
Yeah, and that early in the morning, you can still zip through the parking lot very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And you've already talked enough about where they drop you off. It's a very quick process.
Yep.
Unlike at the end of the night, if you see people getting picked up to be taken home, there's lines and lines and lines and tons of people waiting, can't find their car that's coming to pick them up. But in the morning, the drop-off process is super, super simple.
Good. Excellent. All right, our next question. All things being equal, do you suggest going to Walt Disney World in June or August?
June.
Well, that was easy.
Next question.
I don't really see that much of a difference.
There's a minor difference. August still gets a little bit hotter than June. Imagine that. But June, like August, I find is unbearable.
You see, in Florida, our kids are back in school in June or in August.
Yes,
So there's a little bit less of a crowd.
there can be. Yeah, and the other benefit in August is pricing. Sometimes at the end of the month, we'll see things like free dining or other discounts. But all things equal, I
And
would
once you're
prefer
on the
June.
surface of the sun, I'm sorry, hot is hot.
Hot is
Hot
hot.
is hot. I just find August worse.
August and September, I
find
think,
the
are the
worst,
two
yeah.
worst months that we deal with. Every time April kind of sneaks up, that's when our transition really gets out of winter. Sometimes late March, and then April's when it hits. June is when you think it's bad, and then August comes and like slaps some sense into you. And
Oh, yeah.
no,
It slaps you right upside the head.
yeah.
So
And then weather in August, too. I think we're more prone to hurricanes late August, so I don't know. As I said, just asked me the question. I would go with June.
So without having any background as to why,
Right.
so we covered weather. What about crowds?
Crowds, I would say June's better too. August, except for maybe like the last
The last week.
Last 10 days of
that's
August.
still typically okay, but June, even when there's like a celebration that kicks off around Memorial Day, I still don't find it's that bad until really you hit about the last 2 weeks of June. The first 2 weeks still aren't too terrible.
I don't
But
see much difference.
Well, again, I think it's because we live here and we don't go out in June, July, or August.
Well, we do, but I don't, I still don't see that big a difference.
What about I'm sorry, go ahead.
The kids up north don't get out of school till the end of June.
Right. All of Canada as well. We're the end of June.
What about price-wise for resorts?
I think they would be probably about the same unless we're talking the last week of August. I think coming on the end of August would be a lower season than June.
Oh, what did we see this year? We saw a free dining promotion for
August 29th.
exactly
And
for
then
the beginning of
June,
September.
what was it, June 27th and 28th?
Because I keep talking about it, but the kids are already back to school in Florida,
Yeah.
and kids in the north are going back to school.
Yeah.
People are.
What
planning-
about things that might be in rehab or refurb?
you don't have to really worry about
No.
it in either sense. Everything from Memorial Day all through the rest of
Yeah.
summer, unless it's an extensive
Right.
refurb, everything's going to be up and running, and so you don't usually have to worry about any issues like that.
What about events? Are events better, like special events better in June?
Well, August, you'll start to get the Halloween
Halloween
parties.
parties.
June, we're going to start to get the
Pretty soon. Food and wine is at the end of August? Or is it,
It
still
would
beginning?
flower and garden would roll into, or sorry, you said food and wine at the
Food
end
and
of
wine
August.
end of August.
Yeah, food and wine will start to creep in there. This year, food and wine opened the exact same day as Galaxy's Edge did, and that was the 28th, I believe. So right there at the end. But like you said, the Halloween parties are in there, and it's during that late time. It's during late August. I feel like there's a little bit. If you don't like festivals and events, maybe it's not as ideal. I don't like the events, so I would lean more towards June. But I'm a curmudgeon when it comes to events, so that's me.
Again, not having the whole picture of why
Right, it's hard to
between
know.
these two,
Yeah.
what's important to this person.
We get that question a lot as agents. What's the best time to go?
Right.
What do you consider best?
yesterday.
Yeah. Best is different for everybody. It might be best because of weather, or it might be best because of crowds or price, or
It's a priority for
might
you,
be
what's
best because of when your birthday is and you didn't tell me. I don't know.
Right.
Best is different for everybody.
Excellent. Next question. I spend a lot of time on the boards, the Diz boards, I assume, and I'm always amazed that people can go to Disney 2 or 3 or even more times in 1 year. I can't afford to go once every 5 years. How do you think they can afford it?
Priorities.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think it's where you set your priority. There's a whole board about the budgeting and budgeting. People are willing to sell stuff and save things and give up things. It depends on where you set your priorities. It also depends on where you set your budget.
Right.
I'm going to go back to Tracy booking her room at the end of the ship
Sweet.
behind the wall. No.
No.
Oh, the
this
other
is
room.
The other room.
The other end of the ship. I get it.
If you can afford the least expensive room, you might be able to go on 2 cruises as opposed to somebody
Exactly.
like John who wants a suite.
Yep.
So, I mean, it depends on how you do this.
Yep.
There are people who come to Disney World and eat every meal in a restaurant. There are people who come to Disney World and go back to their hotel room and have PB&J.
Yep.
So it all depends on where you set your priorities and what you think is important. We hear this old thing all the time. If you gave up one Starbucks a day, well, that extrapolates to a bunch of things.
Right. What could you afford?
If you give up cigarettes or if you give up beer, it all depends on what's important to you.
I think people who can travel more than you are just better than you. I think you should come to that conclusion. No, I'm just obviously just kidding. But people's lives are different. Their scenarios are different. Who has kids? Who doesn't have kids? Who has other things in their lives that
Who's willing to stay at a tiny little motel on 192 as opposed to on property? There are things that you can. It depends on what's important to you.
And there are just people out there who make more money than us. There's people
a
at different
spectrum of money.
income levels, and also different availability as far as time. So there's just so many factors in that. And I think if you're only vacationing or going to Disney once every 5 years, because that's a priority you've set. I've had people, who would say, I would never go on vacation twice a year if I still owed on a mortgage. Well, I figure my mortgage companies, they're doing well with my mortgage. I pay them monthly and I still get to go on vacation.
Exactly.
But that's a totally different way of thinking than maybe somebody else.
Right.
And
Who
so
says I'd rather put that money towards my
Yes.
mortgage and pay it off earlier or
Yes.
something like that.
paraphrasing, but I heard something once of something like, don't compare your life to other people's social media, the life that they're putting out there. So, you see what people are putting out there.
It's always the best, most fun moment of their lives.
Right.
You don't see Craig on the couch eating Cheetos
Right.
No, like,
covered in crumbs.
If you're lucky.
and that Kylie has that problem with a lot of people is that she sees the trips they're going on and such, and I'm like, yeah, but they're still renting an apartment. They have no assets to their name. They lease their cars. They rent an apartment. They don't have any of that. We have a house that we are paying off that is only going to gain value. We both own our cars.
Even if it doesn't gain value, it gives you security.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is
And,
a sense of security. So
and-
that's what you've chosen to focus your money on.
And if we wanted to cut out stuff, like one of the things I know that is a complete extravagance, but I do the A-list through AMC because I am a movie buff. And I rake them over the coals with it. You get 3 movies each week, and if it's a busy month, I might only see 3 movies in a month, but I always make sure I get my $20.
I was gonna say it's $20. I mean that
Yeah.
we went to the movies the other day and it was like $25 for the both
Exactly.
of us to go.
Yeah,
So
and so that's like
But if we
500.
buy this, we'll never go to the movies
that's
again.
the problem, right?
Yeah.
Any kind of redemption thing.
Well, that's as soon as I bought it for Kylie, then she's like, "No, I don't want to see movies as much." But it
Feels a little like a gym membership.
Yeah.
Oh no. I want to quit the gym.
I don't want to be guilted into going to the movies. I think the bottom line is the first word I use. It's where your priorities
It
are.
absolutely is. And it's not, it's not to say that your life is so terrible you're doing something wrong.
Right.
It's just that you're just in a different place.
And let's also point out too something like with Craig, you guys are young. So there'll be a time in your lives later on where you
Right.
might travel more
yeah.
because these
Absolutely.
things are behind you and you've taken care of your mortgage and you've
Oh yeah, no, and I'm putting stuff in my savings, and because one day we want kids, and I know that's going to be expensive, and yeah, we could go on extravagant trips probably twice a year, but I would have to give up other things now, and then also looking towards my future, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Right.
I have a Louis Vuitton addiction.
you do.
However, and that's expensive. It's a choice I make, but I give up other things.
What?
Not many.
Like Coach. He's given up his Coach.
no, it's true.
addiction.
It's
Yeah.
I don't ski.
And you think about, I teach you guys all the time about your sweet life and your first class tickets and stuff. I make a choice. I can make a choice to only travel once every, 12 or 18 months or 2 years and travel that way. Or I can make a choice that in the reality of where I am means that I have to travel cheaper, or I can take 2 or 3 trips for
Right.
the price of that. Again, it's all about choice.
You've
I
got
also
some
think
nice
there's
you've got
a-
some nice trips planned next year, but it's because you're willing to travel
Yes.
at that level of stateroom or that
Right.
where
Yep.
that is on the
I
ship.
think there's also a thing where you're at what point in life you're at.
Absolutely.
John and I have no children.
Yep. You're older than me.
I am.
Yeah. Important
true.
to get it out there.
We have a safety net. We have Kathleen, who comes and stays at our house and takes care of the dogs. So these are travel is one of the priorities that we've set.
Right.
You know,
I also don't want to be, counterintuitive to telling people not to take vacations, but
Yeah, thanks for that.
well, I mean, no. But the honest answer is,
Absolutely it is.
If you come 2-3 times a year, I'm happy for you. You're doing the same stuff over and over again, and every now and then there's little changes. But I know for me, the most special vacations are usually when I do experience something different. So I can go to California 5 times, and I love Disneyland, and I love seeing the same stuff. But usually it's that one time where I go and do something completely different, like going to Joshua Tree National Park and
that's
going around
also
there.
a priority.
Exactly.
There are people who get a great deal of comfort out of repetition.
Exactly.
It's like people who, like me, who go to a restaurant over and over again and order the same thing because you like it so much.
If you get caught up in the Disney social media,
Yes.
one of the big things is my happy place. I want to go back. When I'm not there, I'm sad. And there's these references to coming back to Disney because it makes people happy, whether it's doing the same thing or something new.
Yeah,
That's what they want to do.
You shouldn't feel bad though, because it's not going extra times won't necessarily make your life any better. You never know. So
And sometimes people who go 2 or 3 times a year have other things that go on in their lives that make that escape more important. So sometimes day to day is tough.
And not everybody approaches Disney in the exact same manner.
Yeah.
There's 4 of us in this room, and I guarantee you that all 4 of us have a different approach to Disney.
Yep.
So there are people who come and don't go to a park.
Yep.
They enjoy the amenities at the resort and Disney Springs and all of the things around property. So it's your priorities.
Absolutely. You mentioned something. You mentioned the budget board on the Diz boards. If you get a chance,
What did I call it? I didn't
You
think. Did I call it the budget board?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm smart.
the budget board is a great place if you want to go and find out how people are saving for vacations.
I've read it. There's garage sales. You know, people are selling stuff on Etsy. They're crafting and they're figuring out a way to market that. So it all depends. It depends
Selling
on.
stuff or saving stuff or things
And
like
one
that.
of the big things I read all the time is not go to Starbucks. Get a travel mug and make your coffee at home. And if that's what you're doing, and you figure it's $5 a day, that's $25 a week on a regular work week.
There's also people who they've sort of taken this idea of using credit card perks and made that an art form.
Yep.
So if you're willing to create this whole nother job for yourself and splitting these,
It's kind of like
credit card-
couponing at the market.
Yeah, but they're really good at it.
Right.
So they fly for free.
I'm
they get a room
envious.
for free, and they get all this stuff for free. But if you're willing to put the work into that, it's a way to get more vacations and extend your vacations. Excellent. All right. Anything else we want to tell folks before we go?
Come to Disney more often.
Disney more often. You should be here 2 or 3 times a year for sure. That'll do it. Thank you guys for helping me with those questions. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody at home, for joining us. Thank you for listening and watching. We hope you have a great week, and we hope you have a great vacation.